hook and problem framing honey looks gentle. It sits in a clean jar, catches the light, and lands on toast like one of the least troubling foods on your table. You may think of farms, flowers, and some vague scene of bees drifting through a meadow with time to spare. That picture leaves out the worker. So, ask a plain question. How much honey does one honeybee actually finish in her whole life before her body gives out? The answer is about 1/12 of a teaspoon. That is not per day or per trip or per good week in spring. That is the total. One life, one tiny measure. Once that number settles in, breakfast changes shape a bit. A spoonful stops looking like a small treat and starts looking like stacked labor, gathered one short flight at a time by workers that never get near the label. One bee, one shift, one lifetime. A worker honeybee does not begin her life out in the field. She begins indoors, inside the hive, where the jobs are less dramatic and no less constant. Young workers clean cells, tend larvae, feed others, handle wax, and help keep the hive in order. It is factory work at room buzz, and it goes on before she ever sees a flower worth landing on. Later, as she ages, her role shifts. She becomes a forager, which sounds pleasant until you look at what it means. This is the late career assignment, the one with distance, weather, predators, and wear. Summer workers often live only a few weeks, and field work usually comes near the end of that span. Winter bees can last far longer because the colony runs on a different schedule, but the workers gathering nectar in the warm months burn through themselves quickly. They don't retire, they fray. When a forager leaves the hive, she is not hunting for finished honey. She is collecting nectar, a thin sugar liquid made by flowers, and she draws it up with a long tongue into a special storage pouch called the crop, or honey stomach. You see, this is separate from the digestive stomach. The bee is carrying cargo, not sitting down to lunch, though some of that fuel keeps the trip going, because wings don't run on goodwill. A full load can weigh close to as much as the bee herself. Picture carrying your own body weight home through the air, then doing it again while wind, heat, and simple bad luck thin the workforce by the hour. A single foraging run may require visits to roughly 1,000 to 1,500 flowers just to fill that crop. Then the bee turns back and flies home with a load that would be absurd by human terms and entirely normal by bee terms. Bad management, excellent stamina. And this is not a once-in-a-lifetime effort. A healthy forager may make many trips in a day when nectar is flowing, tracing loops from hive to field and back again until her wings wear down. Across that short working life, she may fly miles upon miles, not in one grand migration, but in a long string of commutes. Each run looks small. Added together, they form the whole career. Now place the number beside all that motion. After the flights, the lifting, the flower visits, the risk, and the narrow time window of a summer worker's life, the finished total comes to about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. That is the lifetime output often attached to a single worker bee. Not a jar, not a spoon, not even a full sip in your tea. For the bee, honey is less a pastoral gift than repetitive labor with wings. The sweetness arrives at your table after a body has been used up in increments too small to notice from a breakfast chair. Yet even when that worker returns to the hive with her load, the job still isn't done because nectar is only raw stock and the hive still has to turn it into fuel that can last. The factory, the math, and the myths back at the hive, the nectar enters a process that is more like a production line than most people imagine. The forager passes her load to another worker by regurgitation, mouth to mouth, and that bee may pass it again. It sounds crude because, well, it is a bit crude, but it is also precise. The old line that honey is bee vomit is sloppy shorthand. Nectar does not sit in the main digestive gut where food is broken down for the bee's own body. It is stored in the crop, a separate pouch built for transport. So yes, the nectar is brought back and passed through the mouth, but no, that does not mean a jar of honey is just a bottle of insect sick with branding. As the nectar moves from bee to bee, Enzymes begin cutting complex sugars into simpler ones, mainly glucose and fructose. At this stage, the stuff is still thin, much closer to a sweet liquid than the thick honey you know. Workers then spread it in cells and fan the hive with their wings to drive off water. Once the moisture drops low enough, they seal the cell with wax. Now it can keep.